Hey everybody, so I wanted to jump on here today to talk about a little film called Armageddon Time. This film was written and directed by James Gray. You may know that name because he's the director behind films like Ad Astra, The Lost City of Z, and The Immigrant, just to name a few. But I believe Armageddon Time is his most personal project to date, as this is a film very close to his heart. I believe it is a labor of love because this is loosely based, if not a lot based on his own personal upbringings as an adolescent in the 80s in New York City. The film centers around a young boy named Paul Graff, who is an American Jewish boy just trying to get through everyday life as a teenager, go to school, make friends, go through the awkwardness of things, just a little, coming of age story, if you will. And we get to see him and this friendship unfold with a classmate of his who happens to be African American. His name is Johnny, and he's played by Jaylin Webb. And the friendship between the two of them are wonderful. They are kind of outcasts in their own lane. They're very misunderstood. And they're just two, kids that want so much in terms of other things in the world that kind of go outside of school and outside of the expectations of what society expects of both of them. And I really found the movie to be very interesting. I really liked, narrowing in on just the relationship between the two and the fact that they wanted so much more out of life than just what school had to offer them, despite, again, the unfairness, the corruption, the bigotry, the race in which society had at that time, especially to Jaylin Webb's character because he is African American. And just seeing these two characters be able to kind of form this friendship despite the odds of what was going on then. I think the movie, what is so wonderful is that even though it's, illustrating some really large themes, it's also giving us this really wonderful slice of life. The movie's a lot quieter in tone. It's told in a very, slower pace, but we're able to kind of see this wonderful story, this representation of the early 80s unfold. And so while we're getting that, we're also kind of seeing just the unfairness, like I had mentioned, just kind of being veiled here. And what's wonderful is that we get some really beautiful performances through it all. This is a very hard story to take in, but it's also a very beautiful story at the center of it as well. I think there are some wonderful moments to note, especially those performances, especially from the young boys, Jaylin Webb and Repeta, who play Paul and Johnny. And then we have other actors in this movie like Anne Hathaway, Jeremy Strong, and Sir Anthony Hopkins, just to name a few, who do a wonderful job kind of playing as the parents or the family members of Paul's character. And we really get to just see kind of, what the American dream kind of looks like from this point of view and how intentions are good, except they're not exactly always concluded in the way that they'd hoped in terms of responding to race, responding to bigotry. It's really unfortunate a lot of the time that, at a time like that, you would do anything to kind of protect yourself, protect your family, as opposed to doing the right thing. And this movie kind of poses a very interesting question. If you were put in this position, what would you do? And I really appreciated just seeing kind of a movie that was able to kind of pinpoint moments of the past that, at a different time in our lives and in society, things looked a lot differently than they do now. Not saying that, it excuses them, but it explained exactly maybe, just the nature of how different, 40 years looks, 80s versus today, and what that appears to be now. I do think this is a movie that is not going to get seen by a lot of people, so I do recommend that you check it out if it is something that comes across a streaming service anytime soon. I don't believe the movie is still in theaters, but it is one of those smaller movies that I definitely recommend checking out because I think there's a lot to talk about here. There's a really good conversation to be found within this movie. Do I think it's the most original film? Not quite, but I still think it's a movie worth your time. Again, based on those performances alone and a really important story at the center of it, I think this is something that you should give a view and a checking out at your earliest convenience because there is a lot worth noting here. So if you've seen the movie, I'd love to know your thoughts. Feel free to comment down below. And if you haven't heard of it, this is me now kind of recommending that you do check it out. While I do think there are some things about the movie that are maybe not the best, it is still a movie that I'm definitely recommending. So check it out when you can.